It is 1991, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A summer night, an apartment building on North 25th Street. Neighbors complain about strange smells, about sounds, about a man who keeps to himself. But this is the city. People mind their own business until one night when a young man runs into the street, handcuffed, bleeding, screaming for help. This is the story of Jeffrey Dahmer, a man who killed 17 young men between 1978 and 1991, a man who lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment, a man who worked at a chocolate factory, a man who seemed quiet, lonely, harmless, a man who kept bodies in his home, who drugged his victims, who killed them, who dismembered them, who kept parts. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born in 1960 in Milwaukee. His childhood seemed normal at first. His father was a chemist. His mother struggled with mental illness. Jeffrey was a quiet child, shy, isolated. He collected insects. He dissected roadkill. He wanted to see inside, to understand how things worked. His father thought it was scientific curiosity. It was something else. His parents' marriage fell apart. They fought constantly. Jeffrey withdrew. He started drinking in high school heavily. By the time he graduated, he was an alcoholic. His parents divorced. His mother moved away. She took his younger brother. She left Jeffrey alone in the house. He was 18, alone, and something inside him had been growing, waiting. In June 1978, Jeffrey picked up a hitchhiker, Stephen Hicks, 19 years old. Jeffrey brought him home. They drank, they talked. When Stephen wanted to leave, Jeffrey did not want him to. He struck him with a dumbbell. He strangled him. He dismembered the body. He buried the parts in the backyard. He was 18 years old. He would not kill again for 9 years. Jeffrey joined the army. He was discharged for alcoholism. He moved in with his grandmother in West Allis, a suburb of Milwaukee. He worked odd jobs. He was arrested for exposing himself, for drunkenness, minor offenses. He seemed like a troubled young man, not a killer. Not yet. In 1987, the killings began again. Jeffrey picked up men at gay bars, at bus stops. He brought them to his grandmother's house. He drugged them. He strangled them. He dismembered the bodies. He kept skulls, bones. He told his grandmother he was taxidermy. She believed him, until the smell became unbearable. She asked him to leave. Jeffrey moved to an apartment on North 25th Street in Milwaukee. Apartment 213, a small one-bedroom unit. He lived alone. He worked the night shift at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory. He seemed functional. He paid his rent. He kept to himself. But inside his apartment, horror accumulated. Between 1988 and 1991, Jeffrey killed at least 12 more men. Most were young, black or Asian, marginalized. He met them in bars, on the street. He offered them money for photos, for drinks, for company. They followed him into his apartment, and they did not leave. His method was consistent. He drugged their drinks. When they were unconscious, he strangled them. Then he took photographs. He dismembered the bodies in the bathroom. He kept the skulls. He stored body parts in the refrigerator, in the freezer, in a large blue barrel filled with acid. He said later he did not want them to leave. He wanted to keep them, to possess them completely. Neighbors complained about the smell. The building manager investigated. Jeffrey said his freezer had broken, that meat had spoiled. He cleaned. He apologized. The manager left. No one looked inside. No one checked. In May 1991, a 14-year-old boy, Konorak Sinthasomphone, escaped from Jeffrey's apartment. He was naked, drugged, bleeding. He ran into the street. Police were called. Jeffrey followed, calm, polite. He explained to officers that the boy was his boyfriend, that they had argued, that the boy was drunk. Police believed him. They escorted the boy back to Jeffrey's apartment. They left. Hours later, Jeffrey killed him. On July 22nd, 1991, another man escaped, Tracy Edwards. He had been lured to the apartment. Jeffrey handcuffed him, threatened him with a knife. But Tracy fought back. He ran. He flagged down a police car. Officers saw the handcuffs. They returned to the apartment with Tracy. Jeffrey answered the door. He was calm. He apologized. He said it was a misunderstanding. The officers entered. They asked for the key to the handcuffs. Jeffrey became nervous. One officer walked into the bedroom. He opened the refrigerator. Inside, he found a human head. He shouted. Other officers rushed in. They found more. Skulls, photographs of dismembered bodies, a freezer full of human remains. Jeffrey was arrested. He did not resist. He confessed immediately. Over the following days, Jeffrey described everything. He confessed to 17 murders. He gave names, dates, locations. He explained his process. He spoke calmly, as if describing a routine. He said he felt compelled, that he could not stop, that he wanted to create zombies, compliant companions. He drilled holes into victims' skulls while they were alive. He poured acid into their brains. He wanted to control them, to keep them forever. The details horrified the public. The media coverage was relentless. Milwaukee was in shock. How had this happened? How had no one noticed? How had police returned a victim to the killer? The failures were systemic. The victims were marginalized. Young men, many of color, gay men. Their disappearances had not been prioritized. Their families had filed missing persons reports, but the connections were never made. Jeffrey's trial began in January 1992. He pleaded guilty, but insane. Psychiatrists testified. The defense argued he was driven by mental illness, by uncontrollable urges. The prosecution argued he was sane, that he knew what he was doing, that he planned, that he was careful, that he avoided detection for years. The jury deliberated. They found Jeffrey Dahmer legally sane, guilty on 15 counts of murder. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, 937 years in prison. He showed no emotion. He accepted the verdict. He was sent to the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. In prison, Jeffrey became a target. Other inmates despised him. He was attacked. He survived. He requested solitary confinement. He was denied. He said he accepted his fate, that he deserved whatever happened. On November 28, 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer was beaten to death by a fellow inmate. He was 34 years old. He had served less than 3 years. The families of his victims were notified. Some felt relief. Others felt cheated. They wanted him to live, to suffer, to spend decades in a cell. Justice was incomplete. Questions remained unanswered. Jeffrey's apartment was demolished. The building owners could not rent it. No one would live there. The site became a vacant lot, eventually a park. The city tried to forget, but the memory remained. The case changed how missing persons cases are handled, particularly for marginalized communities. It exposed failures in the system, in communication between police and community, in assumptions about who matters, about whose disappearance deserves attention. The lessons were painful. The cost, 17 lives. Jeffrey Dahmer has been the subject of countless documentaries, books, film. His name is known worldwide. He represents something people struggle to understand, not rage, not revenge, just emptiness, a need to possess, to control, to fill a void that could never be filled. He gave interviews before his death. He spoke calmly. He said he wished he could undo what he did, but he did not seem to feel it, not deeply. He understood intellectually that he had done wrong, but the emotional weight seemed absent. He was detached, even from his own crimes. The victims are remembered. Their families carry the loss. 17 young men, each with a life, a future, taken, reduced to photographs in a file, to names in a trial, to memories held by those who loved them. Jeffrey Dahmer is gone. Beaten to death in a prison bathroom. His apartment is gone, torn down, the evidence destroyed, but the story remains, not as a lesson, not as a warning, just as a A man lived among others, worked, paid rent, seemed ordinary, and in the privacy of his apartment committed horrors for years, unnoticed, until one man escaped, and the door was finally opened, and the truth, horrifying and complete, came into the light. The story ends here, with an empty lot in Milwaukee, with families still grieving, with a city that rebuilt, with a name that will never be forgotten. The silence is broken, but the pain remains, and the question, unanswered, lingers. How did no one see? How did no one know? And the only answer is, they did not look until it was too late.